Copy, active shooter, UCC, 1140 Umpqua College Road.
1174, medical aid. This is for an active shooter at UCC.
Are you a Christian? He would ask them. And if you're a Christian, stand up. And they would stand up, and he said, good, because you're a Christian, you're going to see God in just about 1 second. And then he shot and killed them.
Can you talk to us about the safety drills you guys may have done for active shooters?
We just had one at in-service last week.
Last week?
Mm-hmm.
For students as well?
Not for students. The staff is responsible for student safety.
I didn't hear any shots because I was in the chem lab. Everybody was really calm about it, and it was actually shocking how calm everybody was.
So I guess now it's been 4 hours or so afterward.
Yeah, about or 3.
And you're a hunter, you said, so you would know the sound of gunshot. You would be comfortable with that, and yet you heard nothing.
Heard nothing at all, which is really crazy, freaky, and surprising.
The gunman wounded 9 other people before taking his own life.
The gunman left a manifesto that revealed his intent. The manifesto reportedly had 666 written on it, and the gunman said he wanted to, quote, serve darkness.
Now we are getting some reports from Arizona in the United States saying there's been another shooting incident on a college campus.
Eyewitness News is following breaking news now out of 2 different areas of the country. 2 school shootings today, each hours apart.
The latest at a college student housing complex in Houston. The other in Arizona was first breaking at noon.
Chaos at Jefferson Community Technical College in downtown Louisville this afternoon after reports of an active shooter.
But police never found a shooter.
A Friday afternoon scare at Jefferson Community Technical College as the SWAT team stormed Building A at 8th and Chestnut with a police chopper overhead.
Botched bank robbery at Wells Fargo that led to a standoff. And 10 News cameras were there this afternoon when this suspect was taken into custody.
The suspect has been identified as 30-year-old Cole Hoffman. Police say they did not find a gun. Coming up new at 7, why authorities say the heavy police presence here today is not typical in most attempted bank robbery cases.
When you train a police officer to use military-style weapon from the battlefield, how are you changing that officer's psychological sense of what his duty is? It's sort of soldierizing, if I may coin a phrase.
Mars may be getting all the headlines today, but that's not what had so many Americans gathering late last night to look up at the sky. The greatest show on Earth was the moon, and a rare celestial event that won't happen again for a long time to come.
Millions around the globe peering skyward to catch a glimpse of the super blood moon.
It's beautiful.
From an English countryside to the Eiffel Tower, from the Washington Monument to a Kansas farm field, stunning images filled social media.
This was the first time since 1982 that a supermoon coincided with a total lunar eclipse. And if you missed it, well, you won't see another one until 2033.
We have breaking developments in that missing cargo ship, 33 on board, 28 Americans. It went down, trapped by Hurricane Joaquin.
Residents now calling this the biblical floods of 2015.
Good evening. It's been a dangerous day for millions of Americans in the southeastern part of this country.
A day after the city's wettest day on record. In just 24 hours, more than 11 inches of rain.
I've never seen this before in all my life.
I never thought that it would happen to us. We don't see stuff like this here in South Carolina.
Oh my God, the truck is sinking. The truck is sinking.
The devastating flooding hitting South Carolina has reached catastrophic levels. Several days of relentless rainfall have left roads so saturated, on Sunday many of them gave way.
We haven't seen this level of rain in the Low Country in 1,000 years. That's how big this is.
The biblical deluge was enough to raise the dead. Floodwaters lifted caskets from their graves. What started under cover of darkness lasted through the day. The deluge overflowing several dams, 1,000 times more water than usual flowing over some of them. Some roads collapsing under the weight of it all.
State officials say it's never been this bad.
The death toll is mounting in France after flash floods struck the French Riviera over the weekend. Local officials described the scenes as apocalyptic. Residents said it was the worst flooding they have ever seen.
2 months worth of rain hit France's southeastern region in just over 2 hours.
The rare heavy rains hit on Saturday night in one of the wealthiest areas in France.
Unusually powerful storms have hit southern France in recent years, like this tornado filmed in La Ciotat on Saturday. Local scientists and residents say they had never seen anything like it.
At least 9 people were killed after Typhoon Mujigai tore through the northern Philippines and southern China over the weekend. Moved on to batter China with several strong tornadoes in Guangdong province. Mujigai was reportedly the strongest typhoon to hit the Chinese mainland in 6 decades.
Typhoon Mugiai made landfall near the coastal city of Zhangjiang on Sunday afternoon and has mainly affected the Guangdong and Guangxi provinces.
The nearby industrial powerhouse of Zhejiang was hit by towering waves and high gales.
Hundreds of dead fish are washing up on the shores of a local lake.
A number of dead fish.
I've been fishing up here since 1992, and I haven't seen anything quite like this before.
This is the scene Thursday morning outside the Highland Park Church.
Most of them were here and there and everywhere.
It's here that congregants find dozens, perhaps hundreds of dead birds all around the church.
Little green things. Found out that they're green warblers coming down from Canada.
So this is just a weird occurrence.
No, I'm afraid it's happening more often.
U.S. Fish and Wildlife agents were on the scene. They recommend that if you come across dead birds like this, not to handle them. It's possible they've come into contact with poisons, which could harm you.
Just be glad you can't smell it through your television. The fish kill was discovered this afternoon, and some of the locals say it's the worst they've seen in several years.
As the waves wash ashore Freeport's Bryan Beach, so do the fish. Thousands and thousands of bait fish known as shad. They litter the shore from the mouth of the Brazos River and stretch several hundred yards east. The city's assistant manager made the discovery during a routine check Wednesday afternoon.
Lots of dead fish. I mean, hardly any bait in the water. Fish are few and far between. The fishing ain't no good right now.
A group more than 1,000 miles away from the CSRA is demanding that a local sheriff remove a very familiar motto from his fleet of vehicles.
10 Commandments coming down at the Capitol grounds of the Oklahoma Supreme Court. Workers now removing it after a Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional. Contractors taking it down in the middle of the night, overnight last night.
It took workers just a little over an hour tonight to remove the 10 Commandments monument from the state capitol grounds.
From overnight, Fox 23 is hearing from hundreds of people in Green Country who say this morning's 4.4 magnitude earthquake woke them up and rattled their homes. In the last 24 hours, 4 earthquakes have shook Oklahoma near Medford, Perry, and Fairview.
You have probably been rattled about all weekend by earthquakes. There have been some pretty big ones that we've had. Earthquake activist Angela Spott says there were more than a dozen across the state over the weekend, and the problem is only getting worse.
The postal worker who was driving that big rig demolished by a waterspout in Florida is telling his story.
This waterspout strong enough to knock over and then lift an 80,000-pound truck within a matter of seconds.
think that those 18-wheelers
can
are
withstand
so
it,
big
sure.
and sturdy,
Not
but in
so
fact,
much. Mother Nature is a much stronger force.
A sinkhole the size of a football field has swallowed campers and tents at a popular Queensland campsite. Queensland Parks and Wildlife Services said the 500-foot sinkhole is 9 feet deep and takes up a large part of the campsite.
Violence continues to spread in the Middle East, with 4 Israelis being wounded in the latest round of stabbing attacks by Palestinians.
The obsession of violence continues plaguing Israelis and Palestinians. On Monday, multiple stabbings, ongoing clashes, funerals for Palestinians.
An elderly Israeli woman has been stabbed in yet another attack in Jerusalem, this time outside the main bus station. The attacker, now identified as a Palestinian man, was killed by officers while attempting to board a bus to flee. Earlier, police averted another stabbing in Jerusalem's Old City, killing the attacker. The Israeli army has deployed hundreds of troops in cities to assist the police. The Israeli military can now seal off areas in Jerusalem to counter acts of terrorism.
In July, an Israeli cabinet minister called for the building of the third temple on the Temple Mount.
Hello. Russia is stepping up its military action in Syria. The defense minister has confirmed that Russian warships in the Caspian Sea have launched cruise missiles, they say, at the self-styled Islamic State group. Now, we've just got some rather dramatic pictures in. These showing Russian missiles being fired from hundreds of kilometers away.
It's been 2 days of Russian airstrikes against terror groups in Syria.
France launched its first airstrike in Syria on September the 27th, saying it had destroyed an ISIL training camp.
Iran's Revolutionary Guard took to the airwaves to show off a secret underground military base which houses both medium and long-range missiles. Airing on the state-run TV network on Wednesday, October 14th, the segment included footage of long tunnels with ready-to-fire missiles on the back of trucks. According to the broadcast, the facility is one of hundreds of underground missile bases around the country. This reveal comes just days after Iran said it successfully test-fired a new long-range surface-to-surface ballistic missile.
Salvation for this sin is the gospel. The only way to really cure that what's on the inside is understanding that Jesus Christ died for our sins. And so to me, on a micro level, it's understanding.
Oh, and just like that, we lost him.